Welcome to another episode of the Startup Voyage podcast. Smart Girl Search, empowering girls to change the world. In this podcast, we are met with Neil Fennesey and his daughter Hannah, the founder of Smart Girl Search, sharing the remarkable story of creating a platform that connects girls who want to make a difference in the world. Now, at the young age of 12, Hannah's desire to help girls like herself who were feeling isolated during the pandemic led her to establish Smart Girl Search with her father's support. The platform serves as a virtual community where like-minded girls can come together, share the stories, and learn from one another. Together, they strive to create a better world through their collective efforts and support. Through her passion for learning and her in-depth knowledge, Hannah shines a light on the achievements and contributions of remarkable women who have changed the course of history. When she's not busy empowering others, Hannah enjoys playing the piano, learning Chinese and Spanish, and engaging in sports like horse riding and soccer. Her enthusiasm for literature and movies featuring inspirational female figures adds depth to her understanding of the world. So join Hannah on her quest to empower girls and follow Smart Girl Search by visiting her website. Get ready to be inspired, uplifted, and motivated to make a change as we join Hannah and her father when we talk through the Smart Girl Search journey, where the voices of young girls resonate and ignite a collective spark to create a better future. So today we are here to speak about the Smart Girl Search, how it started in the midst of a pandemic that the whole world was going through, which no one ever predicted, and how Hannah's vision was brought to life and where she plans to take the Smart Girl Search in the future. So Hannah, one of the things I wanted to ask you when we first started is, like, during the times of the pandemic, you can maybe explain a little bit about what you were going through personally, and whether it be related to school, and basically how did the idea of the Smart Girl Search percolate?
I was a little bored during the pandemic, as I think a lot of people were. It was hard to try to find things to do that I was able to do inside of my house alone. So not playing sports with other people, not being able to ride horses. And we were talking one day, the idea of Smart Girl Search popped up. We started working on it. It was a project for us. We spent a lot of time on it. We thought it was fun and kept working on it. Here we are now.
Okay. So if you were to sum up what Smart Girl, what it is, like if you sum it up in 3 sentences, how would you describe it?
I would say that it is a website and community for women to learn about other women and be inspired about the amazing things that the women featured on Smart Girl Search have done.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think that, what is your expectation of the impact for the visitors of your website? What would they be experiencing?
I hope that every visitor learns something that they find interesting about a woman featured, or is inspired by that woman to do something in the world.
Okay. So how, maybe you can explain a little bit about how do you select a woman? Is it, whether it be someone back in history that had done something amazing, or someone that is actually relevant in today's, world? Yeah.
For women in today's world, I like to find women that are doing something new, something big, exciting, something that will make an impact on the world. And for women from history, I think I like to choose women that have done something to greatly affect the world and how we live today.
Okay. Well, can you share maybe a couple of people that you've met individually that inspired you, and why?
That's a good question. I would say a lot of the women that I've met in my life have been like parents, friends, or people, moms that I know, friends of moms that are successful in their fields, in their jobs, kind people. And I think that all of those attributes that they have are very helpful for young women developing, especially me, into their older and more adult selves. They are good role models for how to act and how to behave.
So what it sounds like I'm hearing is you're highlighting women, everyday women, that are just doing their thing, being amazing mothers, being amazing friends, and making an impact in their own way. Yeah, so I think that's really great, because I think what usually gets sensationalized are those ones that want all this attention. They go onto social media, and they're doing things just to get the attention, but not making a real impact. What is are you sharing a lot of your information beyond your website? Are you using social media as a channel to also reach out, maybe find new people that you might want to add to your website?
Yes, we use Instagram as our main account. We also use Facebook, Twitter, and we just created a YouTube account or channel a few months ago.
Okay. Hey, Neil, why don't you share a little bit about the journey in the beginning? How did you end up supporting the idea?
So Hannah's always been an avid reader, and we would spend a lot of time in Barnes & Noble or other bookstores. I would take her over to the kids section, and a lot of the books over there are ranked 1, 2, 3, and 4 based on the level of complexity or the detail of the story. And Hannah was very good and very quick at word identification and word association. So she quickly moved up from the 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. As we went through the various options, I always tried to steer her towards women. Martina Navratilova, for example, was one. Michelle Obama, of course, Oprah, but also women from history, Harriet Tubman, and anyone that had been displayed in the bookstores. And Hannah would read the books and just gobble them up. Now, her word association caught up with who she was reading about and what the story was. So it took a little time, as you can imagine. Kids are looking at words and they're just putting them together and forming sentences, but they don't know the meaning behind those. So not long after, I would say probably about 5 or 6, the association and the history of what she was reading started to catch on. 7, 8, and 9, now she's fully understanding the stories. So I have an avid reader. I have someone who loves to read. And when the pandemic hit, the books that she was reading just kicked up. When did you read Becoming, Michelle Obama's Becoming?
I was in either 3rd or 4th grade.
Yeah.
I think.
And that was en route to...
No.
Where were we going?
I don't know. I remember I finished it in an airplane though.
Yeah, I think we were going to Italy. And it was interesting because other women on the plane were looking at, they were like, oh, she read it. Yeah. So here we have this amazing book already under her belt. And it was funny because her grandmother bought her the book, but it bought her the kids' version. And she's not too long ago. But the other thing was the other books that it opened your mind. And we tried to read different books. Sotomayor book, got about halfway through that. Bill Gates' book on helping with the environment, got about a little bit through that. So certain books you realize, certain books grab you and certain books don't. But The Hate You Give, I think you've read that twice.
Yes.
And I saw that I Am Malala, right? So yes. I think you read that when you were 11, maybe?
Yeah.
And there were fascinating stories, and I just thought, we got to do something with these books. You're reading these amazing stories. What can we do with it? We need to introduce you to the world of the internet through a different way, not just searching, right? Not just being on Instagram. And that's where the blogging came up. And out came the name, and from there. And most of the stories you wrote early on before we started to hire additional writers and editors. But one person I wanted to bring up was your trainer.
Oh,
She was the real first person
Oh,
that you
that's
did.
right.
Yeah, your trainer, and her name has totally slipped my mind. Your horse trainer.
trainer for
Oh, oh,
soccer, for
No,
horseback
Candace
riding.
King.
yeah, Candace.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she talk about Candace because Candace
Okay.
has got an amazing story of perseverance.
All right.
She was holding a horseback riding clinic at the stable I ride at. She's very nice. I always liked riding with her. Always learned a lot. I've done other clinics, but nothing has really taught me as much as she has, and not just about technique and skill about horseback riding, but more of the perseverance and determination of horseback riding. Because I remember I was, I don't know, 9, and I'm very petite. I was, I don't know, 4'5", 4'6" back then, the biggest horse in the barn. I had never ridden this horse before, and I was really struggling. And she stopped me as I was like almost about to cry because I thought I couldn't do it. And she told me that I had to do it in order to get better. So I always thought of it that way, that if I wanted to get better, I couldn't stay where I was. I would just have to push out my comfort zone to get better. And her words have stuck with me through my horseback riding career, I guess you could say. I always thought that she was very helpful in helping me, even though she may not be there sometimes. She might be in Florida and I may be in New York, but sometimes I think about that when I'm ever struggling. So I always thought that that was a good woman to interview and highlight.
Okay. So tell me how has that impacted your life moving forward, like outside of horseback riding?
I think that the idea of to change, to be who you want to become, you can't stay who you are, is a very big idea for changing, for growing and advancing into anything you want to. I think that is a mantra, a good piece of advice for anyone.
Okay. Well, you mentioned one thing for sure was something around doing things that you're not comfortable with. So getting out of your comfort zone. Do you feel that this is a characteristic, a mindset that your peers, your friends at school have, that they're developing, or is it something that there's a lot of fear that people are afraid to even try instead of getting out of the comfort zone? What are you seeing in your circle of friends?
In my circle of friends, I would say that a lot of people try to get out of the comfort zone, but I also don't know what happens in everybody's personal lives, so you never know what anybody else is going through. You never know how much people are having to change or grow. So,
yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. That's great to hear. I mean, that's definitely something that I think, even when it comes to becoming adults, having a company that you own. And basically just life in general, right? Just growing, getting out of your comfort zone. And these are the areas that you learn a lot more. So it's great to hear that you've already experienced that at such a young age. Now going back to, I guess, the Smart Girl search, it's been almost like 2 years now. Has your vision or your idea of what you want it to become, has that changed any, or have you had any new ideas?
not necessarily. I think that we've always stuck true to our idea. We've had a few other ideas we've thought about changing or making something new, but I think that the end goal was always the same idea.
Okay. So I guess the being the visionary and the founder of this business, what do you see? What you learned so far? What can you share as maybe good quality characteristics for any owner of a business? Like, what do you think to really persevere and make it successful? Maybe name like your top 3 characteristics in a leader.
Okay. For a leader, I would say you have to be willing to be with other people. You have to be a team player. Because at the end of the day, you can't do everything by yourself.
Okay.
I would say that you need determination. You can't just give up. And what else? I would say ambition. I would say that you have to want to do what you're doing, and you have to want to keep going. You have to have a goal, always have something that you're working towards, but also enjoy the process of getting to your goal.
Okay. So, just to go back, so number 1, for sure, being a team player, we can't do everything ourselves. For sure, if you all the successful people that you've interviewed, I'm sure the stories were tied to the people that surround them to support them in order for them to get where they are. So number 2, determination for sure, to wake up every day and remind yourself like what you're working for, and some days will be tough and you might want to give up, but you keep on going forward. And number 3, ambition. I guess always understanding the reason, the why of why you're doing it, and basically the motivation that drives you every single day. So those are the top 3. Those are very good. What do you think about those, Neil?
I think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
I see how she has leadership qualities that I don't think she realized she has.
Right.
She's just by natural. And I see the determination. It's, there's this concept of grit, which some people agree with, some people do not. But the idea of you just got to keep going. And we see that in horseback riding. We saw that in soccer. We see that in this project. We see that in your homework, right? She'll get up at 5:30 in the morning sometimes to finish homework. 5:30 in the morning. That's insane. She'll do it because she knows she has to. And she doesn't have to because she'll get in trouble. She knows she has to because she personally will feel sad or disappointed in the fact that she didn't do it. But now she's learning balance, where sometimes too much can be too much. And I think that's great. And the team aspect is, learning what the benefits are of working with people with skills that you don't already have. Some of the folks we've added on as editors to help us write articles. You met that was an amazing story. She should actually be one of the women we highlight as a smart girl. Azeda. Azeda is one of the editors, and she had just come back from a refugee camp in Argentina. No, in Afghanistan, right?
India, I think.
India.
Yes, India.
Yeah. You should, if you get a second, if we have time, you should talk about meeting Azeda. Because we met Azeda through Upwork, and we were just looking for extra people to help us write. And we clicked. Do you have time to talk about Azeda? You want to tell us a little bit about how you met Azeda? Yeah, talk about Azeda and her story.
Sure. She's very nice. She is the daughter of an immigrant family. She went to college in Oregon, I believe, and then came to Syracuse University, where I live near, for her master's.
And now she's in her doctorate. She's going for a PhD.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
I believe.
And she is an editor for Smart Girl Search. She is a very big, I can't think of the word. Oh my gosh. Yes, advocate, sorry.
There you go.
For women's rights and immigrants' rights. She very nice. She was very easy to talk to, very fun, had some great stories. We had sushi together and we had fun.
The photos. Do you remember where she was though in India? And
I don't know what part.
it was in a very agrarian society, but it had no commerce, traditional commerce using fiat currency, cash. They, what did she do? Didn't she pay with a chicken?
Yes, something like that. Something a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, she brought a chicken to the headmaster of the house she was staying at. And that resulted in just an extra level of comfort, right? And that person then helped her out. And she showed photographs of her at what we would call almost like a flea market. And people were carrying animals to the market. What were the animals they were carrying?
They were
Do you remember?
some odd birds.
Yeah.
I should say odd, more exotic rather.
Yeah.
There were like full beehives, wild
Monkeys.
cats, monkeys.
That they were going to.
Tiny monkeys.
Yeah. That they would eat. I mean, it was food, right? This wasn't a pet market. This was a food market, and nobody gave money. Nobody gave fiat currency. Everything was based on, I'll give you 2 chickens for that
trade
type of thing. It was
trade
total
for
trade
goods.
industry barter, true barter.
Yeah, true barter.
So, here we are sitting. Obviously, we live in a very nice community. We're very fortunate. It's been a rough ride, but here she is telling us stories about, her journey, and she's a woman by herself. I always thought she was very impressive. And the two of us, Hannah and I, got in the car and we're like, oh my gosh, wow, right? She's in the middle of like really bad sections, feudal lord sections of India by herself, totally by herself, and getting it done.
Right.
Anyway, that was just another person that there's always fun stories that we bump into and amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, I guess let's go and let's talk about it because I'm really curious about this. And Hannah, what's your viewpoint of technology? I mean, I don't know how much you keep in touch with everything that's going on. For example, Apple just had their worldwide developer conference where they've introduced these goggles. I don't know if you've seen them on the news. And they're virtual reality, augmented reality. Who knows what you're going to be able to do with these things. I mean, what do you think about technology? Do you use it every day?
I do use technology every day. As our first Smart Girl Searcher school, most of my schoolwork is now online, so I'm able to do lots of everything online, honestly. I know a decent amount about technology. We were just talking about AI yesterday and how it's going to change the world on the car ride home from school. I mean, I could know more, obviously. My dad knows much more than I do. But
well, let me ask you, because you talked about reading books, and you also read stuff on, like, I don't know, a laptop or on a phone. What is your preference, and what is the difference to you in consuming the story through a paper, or actually the feel of paper and reading a book as opposed to digital?
I like reading stuff online, but not as much as on paper. On paper, it seems more of a way where I'm just by myself, because as the internet is such a big place for communication for people all over the world, and reading is just my own little thing. I don't have to be connected to the rest of the world. I don't have to change tabs and type something different. I can just be in my own little book and read my own little story in my own little room and just be by myself for a little while.
So how do you keep up to date with what's going on in technology? Do you look at any websites? Do you see stuff on social media? Like, how do you hear about new stuff coming out?
I see stuff on social media sometimes, but typically it's my dad or the news. He reads a lot of the news. I don't. So it's usually, hey Hannah, have you heard of this? Or
Yeah.
this came out. It's like, oh, I
YouTube.
didn't know about that. That's cool. Yeah.
I'll
Lots
send
of
you things in YouTube. Lots of YouTube.
Yes. Lots of YouTube and Instagram reels.
Right. Well, that seems to be definitely popular channels. Neil, do you have perspective on how much Hannah consumes information on digital? Like, how much screen time is being put in? Do you have concerns around that?
It's an interesting point. Concerns. During COVID, that was our escape. That was our only way in which we operated. We don't have, I haven't had cable television since 2007. It's not 2017, 2007. I just gave up cable. So all of our entertainment is 100% internet driven. Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, Disney Plus, and on occasion we throttle those accounts. There's a major concern right now with young women Instagram body image.
Right. And
we've largely avoided that, I believe, but we're always sensitive of it. And too much time on Instagram. I've monitored Instagram, like, oh my God, you're on Instagram for 4 hours. What the hell are you doing on Instagram for 4 hours?
Oh,
right?
that's a lot of time.
There's a lot of time because it's addictive. But then again, so have I, right? Sometimes I'll sit there and go, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
All of my stuff is Dwell magazine and architecture stuff. So I think there's, it ebbs and flows. I don't think it's dangerous. I think, we were just talking the other day about careers. And we were like, what kind of a career are you going to have in the future? What do you want to do? What you want? We were just interacting with doctors the other day, and we're thinking, all right, can you do a doctor? Do the doctor path, the medical path? And the question, of course, was how is AI, like ChatGPT, going to affect the medical community? She's like, I don't want to be in front of a computer. I don't want to be in front of a computer. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? She's like, I want to be a doctor. And I'm like, I just had a doctor's visit the other day. She looked at me and she looked at her computer. Back at me, back at her computer. I said, you're in front of your computer the whole entire time. I said, what about, and we were joking, right, about HVAC, because I have a good friend of mine who has two sons. And one son is very big he's very, very scholastic, loves all things school, education. The other one is all about engineering and doing things with his hands. It wants to live a different world. And we were talking about the idea of Votech. And someone was working on her house back in Boston and saying that, plumbers right now could be pulling in $250, $300, $400 an hour. And about, a few years it'll be $1,000 an hour. Hannah's sitting next to me. I'm like, Hannah, $1,000 an hour. You don't need to be a doctor. You can make $1,000 an hour. You could be a plumber. You could be an electrician. You can do HVAC. So the other day I was joking, you could be an HVAC. You 25 years old with a degree in ChatGPT designing HVAC for a 60-mile tunnel through the Himalayan mountains or something. She's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So we don't know what the future of technology holds for Hannah and her peers, or for her little brother and sister, or for kids who are in kindergarten. We have no idea what technology is going to do. It's another tool, right? We went from the person pulling a log to animals pulling a log to tractors pulling a log. Now the tractors are unpeopled. Right, they're on their own, and maybe ChatGPT goes the next level. So I said, it's all coming down to questions. Remember how we were talking about questions? Everything's about questions. Yeah. It's like, I can't make any money asking questions. I'm like, I think you can, right? Because you have to know what questions to ask.
Right.
So I don't know how technology will play out. At the same time, there was a very interesting article. What was that website I showed you? Some Things.
Yes.
Some Things, and I think you and I, Arthur, talked about it. Somethings.com it's a support tool for teenagers, and we have no affiliation to it, but it seems like an amazing organization. But that's technology, right? It's giving a new interface. Kids who may not have the ability to get to a person, maybe because they're in a rural community, maybe there's some other restriction in their place. So, technology is it's a flip of a coin. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And then it just comes down to us with open communicating outside of technology, making sure that Hannah's speaking her mind and being able to say, no, that's not the way. It's become so natural for her world. When we travel, she's on the phone, right? She's Googling. And she's a master Googler, right? I mean, she's all things.
Yes.
Great
at Google Maps.
Google Maps, my gosh, right? I remember with my dad, the old Exxon maps, right? You had to learn how to fold the Exxon. I have them upstairs. right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing, of course, is that, sometimes there's like a dotted line. A dotted line means there's a road going there. You may or may not be finished the next time you're looking at the map, but her world is so different.
Yeah.
We have a gluten sensitivity, right? We don't know if it's celiac, we have gluten sensitivity, and we were in Spain, traveling through Spain. So she found the restaurants that were healthy for her, right? And then we gave reviews. We're back in the States, and they're like, "Oh, thanks so much. It was great to meet you too." I'm like, what a crazy world that is, right? Here's a restaurant
awesome.
that's just down the street from, you're in Madrid. But when we found it via Yelp, we know the next country that we go and visit, that she can look online and find restaurants that will be comfortable for her. That anxiety of what am I going to eat? What am I going to do? It's gone. It's completely gone.
Yeah.
Where are we going to stay? Finding the Airbnbs. She plans it, right?
Yeah.
And that's her generation.
Yeah. I guess what I'm hearing from you is just it's a tool, and it can be powerful based on how you use it, and that in respect of how is that going to impact how what opportunities to work in the future. But I think it sounds like what's been consistent is that it's a tool, right? I guess the question is, I think the narrative has been, are these tools going to replace humans? Like, I don't know, are they robots? there's AI being used to create people in commercials where you don't have to use people anymore. Which I think
you won't have to pay union dues, right? You
Yeah,
don't
I
pay union
guess.
fees. You
I
never
guess
have to worry
so.
about. Hannah and I were talking about getting her voice into AI because it would probably read speeches faster.
Yeah.
Right? We did this. Remember we did the voice of May. What was I singing? Miley Cyrus.
Oh yeah, you were singing "Party in the USA" by Miley Cyrus. It was just in this
Very monotone.
this speech.
Yeah.
It was my voice.
Yeah.
It almost had my intonation, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever, and you probably have, if you've ever recorded yourself, it can take a while. You put your pauses in, and it takes a while to understand when to do your pause, when to emphasize. That's difficult to do.
Sure.
So if you could throw your programmed voice in, you could give the presentation for you on your behalf. But you're now reading Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And Hannah's now reading Shakespeare. And the big thing about Shakespeare, what's the big thing you've learned about reading Shakespeare? I'll throw you on the spot. Do you remember we were talking about it the other day?
Oh, it reads in iambic pentameter. Did I say that wrong? Oh,
yeah,
wait.
I think you're right. Yeah, we're gonna get a Shakespearean
Something like
person
that.
to correct us at some point in the chat room. But it's how you speak, and this is how you deliver your line. So how do you teach an AI to do that? Maybe you can, but will it do it a little bit differently the second time? Will it do it a little bit differently the third time? Will it get different inflection? So that's the difference when we go on to stage. That's why we like going to see stage plays, which we've seen a bunch of plays, because a play is different. Almost every single night, there's just a little bit of difference than what we see in the movies.
Okay.
So how do you play that out? I don't know. That's the unknown. That little bit of variety, right?
Right. All right. Well, I've got just a couple other questions that maybe we can cover, and this is for Hannah. What advice would you have for young girls who want to make a difference, but feel perhaps discouraged or not supported or uncertain about where to start? What would your advice be?
I would say just to think about all the other people that you look up to who have done amazing things, and how most of the time they were probably nervous or anxious, uncertain on how to do it. So just give it a shot. You may be wrong, you may be right, it may work, it may not, but at least you give it a try.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is try and don't regret trying.
Yeah.
At least you tried. Okay. So, for our listeners out there, I guess with other parents will probably be listening to this podcast episode. And this is for a question for both Neil and Hannah. What message would you like to convey to our audience that kind of supports and contributes to the Smart Girls Search?
I don't know.
how do they get involved? Are you? I mean, I'm assuming you're looking for new people that you might want to interview.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just reach out, say hi, just at the end of the day, just give anything you want to do a shot.
Okay.
We forget that we don't get unless we ask.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, look where you and I are at, right? I mean, you asked, and I thought, sure, why not? Because that's the response. Ask politely, ideally, right? Ask respectfully, and see what you can get in response. Because there's always someone willing. I have a classmate of mine from high school who now works at Ford, and the new head of engineering. Do you remember her name for the Ford Mustang? Hannah, what's her name? Laura. We have to go back and look. Just recently became the head engineering for Mustang. So I'm like, hey, Todd, can you introduce us? So he sent over an email, and hopefully she can get back to us. But that's an ask. Why not? A lot of people are interested in taking a few minutes of their day and tell a story, right? Because you never know what a story can do. Oh my gosh, that's just like me. Well, that's inspirational. Or I know someone who would be great. Oh, you got to do so-and-so. You have to talk to so-and-so. You know, we were joking around about Hannah's National Junior Honor Society. I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do for volunteer hours? And we did some charity work, and I thought, let's go check out the National Women's Hall of Fame, which is right down the street in Seneca Falls. So I drafted an email and said, hey, could we highlight you folks and your inductees for 2023? And they're like, yes, right? And here's these amazing women, and they're not women that you ordinarily would know. And that's what Smart Girl Search was for me. It's highlighting people that the market doesn't know. People don't know. You know, it's someone who's accomplished great things. And like, who are we talking about? We're just talking about some like amazing inventions. Who was it? And stories you never knew before. Who was it?
Was it Hedy Lamarr?
Yes, famous actress, but also what did Hedy Lamarr?
She helped to create some of the technology that is now, is it Wi-Fi or Bluetooth?
Yeah, it's Wi-Fi.
Sorry, I think Wi-Fi. Yeah.
And how would you know that, right? I mean, everybody knows Hedy Lamarr as the actor, or Claudette
Colvin. She was she was technically the inspiration for Rosa Parks' actions. She helped create the Montgomery bus boycott, and in turn, that was the beginning of the civil rights movement. So, not many people know her name, but she was the beginning of lots of change in America.
There's always a story behind a story.
There is. And everybody has one. And sometimes you have to take a moment and remember that. You know, Hannah's got a story that maybe one day will come out. I've got a story that maybe one day will come out that brings us to where we're at today. And it gives you kinship. It gives you, okay, they did it. Because you never know who's looking. I mean, I'm sure I've sat there and thought, oh my gosh, is the rain going to stop today? Right? And then you realize that someone else was in a similar situation. And I'm always inspired by Hannah from some of the adversity that she's faced in life and how well she's hammered through it. So hopefully there are other people out there that are going to say the same thing. Oh, wow, she can do it. Maybe I'd love to write an article.
Sure.
Could I do that? Could I help? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that wraps the show. I want to thank you both, Neil and Hannah, for joining and sharing your story. And for sure, this podcast will be going up on YouTube and all the different podcast channels. And hopefully it will touch at least one person's world in which they can actually take the information and take action. So that concludes this episode of the Startup Voyage podcast. I would like to thank all of you for listening to this episode, and I'd really appreciate it if you leave any type of comments that you'd like to share, because it helps to feedback on how I deliver these podcasts, and I definitely want to improve it to continue to add more value to the audience. Now, you can follow us on many of the popular podcast channels: Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Equally, I'm going to be uploading all these episodes onto YouTube. So it's more than just audio, it's video. You can see everyone's faces. Look, I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. And I'm always open to new ideas or looking for new guests. So if you know anyone in the space of Web3 that is an influencer or leader or someone who's really trying to shape what Web3 will be in the future, I'd love to hear from them. All right. So yeah, just comment below. You can DM me. I have all my information in the details underneath this podcast episode. So yeah, thank you for joining me today and have a great one. See you in the next episode.